Yo, welcome to the stream. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Ping the team. This is my first time doing this, so bear with me.
Music licensing reimagined.
How's my mic? Somebody let me know in the comments. Should be an interesting time. This is final hour of the US trading session. I can hear you, and the music. How's the music? Is it too loud? Is it too quiet? Would love to know. Background maybe a little high. Let's turn the background music a bit down. I was having fun earlier today looking at all these different samples. Well, if you are thinking crypto markets are difficult to trade right now, that's because they are. This is some choppy bullshit on the lower time frames. It's why I wrote on my channel that I'm not looking to actively trade directionally at the moment, but we can get into a whole bunch of stuff about how I trade and how I think about the markets. Let's just talk about what we're going to do today, what we're going to get into. So we'll take a look at, add this to my stage. So we're going to look at my TradingView setup first of all. So what have I got on there and what is it showing me? Then I'll skip over to VeloData and Orion Terminal. I'll show you some of the Telegram channels that I follow and find useful. We can then talk about setting up your own spaghetti chart and how I set up mine. TradingView alerts if we get time, and then obviously so on and so forth. You guys can read, so I'm not gonna offend you, but you get some idea of what we'll be doing today. I did load a brand new wallet up with some money, so I'm gonna be constantly switching between screens. You're gonna have to get used to that. I did put some money in a new Hyperliquid account today, so I put $1,000 on there, which we can use in the stream, and I added $1,000. Oh, wasn't sharing my screen. That happens. Yeah, sorry. I was saying I put $1,000 in a Hyperliquid account, a brand new account, which we can use for today's stream. And I also deposited $1,000 into Pair.Garden, into a new wallet there as well. So we'll be using those a bit later. I can show you how I enter trades, how I size things, how I look to risk manage them as well. But this is what we're looking to do today. I'll just check in with the team. Can remove the background music at some point. I'd rather have it just really low, but if it's too loud, let me know. It's nice for me.
Music licensing reimagined.
Low is a good vibe. Too low? I don't know. Let's put it at 20. So anyone who's ever done any streaming before, I was trying to use something called Studio OBS or OBS Studio or something, and I honestly got such a headache. So now I'm using something pretty simple called StreamYard, but it does mean that I will have to be constantly stopping my screen and then switching between tabs, which is a realistic insight into my day, which is I'm always switching between tabs and screens. But yeah. Let's get into it.
Reimagined.
Okay, I'm going to reduce this background music even more. People are saying it's too much. Fine, so let's get into the first thing we were going to talk about today, which is TradingView and what do I have set up and what am I looking for. So if you're trading crypto and you don't have a TradingView subscription, I honestly think you're in the dark a little bit. Like, TradingView is essential, and skimping out on a premium subscription is really not worth it, because you can do all sorts of things which we can get into. But just for me, the ability to have this on my phone on the go, the ability to save all of these charts and have all these different lists for things as well. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Right, so what's going on here? One of my most trusted metrics is removing all the green and red, because we have such psychological priming when we see green and when we see red. So one of the first things I did when I set up my candles over here was I ensured that I changed them to blue and white. And you'll see this quite often on crypto Twitter, but it's really to remove a lot of the like emotion when you see a big red candle, and the same when you see a big green candle as well. So I chose blue and white. I know some other people choose black and white, and I can fully understand why they do something like that. So something here, we're looking at the Bitcoin. Obviously, you've got different time frames. Different time frames tell you different stories. 1 hour, 4 hour, daily, weekly, and so forth. And you're really looking for some degree of confluence, right? So Bitcoin's not a great example because it's clearly ranging, and it's telling you that on multiple time frames. It's telling you that on the weekly, that it's ranging like so. It's telling you on the 3-day, which is an underused time frame in my opinion, something that I like to use a lot. And it's telling you the similar kind of story on the daily. But if you zoomed in to the hourly, you'd be like, oh my god, yeah, this thing is doing something, right? Maybe even shorter time frames you have to look. And this is where a lot of people get caught up, because they're like, oh, I think this is trending lower. And they look at the 5-minute time frame and they make a decision. The only reason, in my opinion, you should be on lower time frames is for entries and exits. And it's something I definitely use when I'm looking to get into a trade and looking to get out of a trade, but most of the time I'm oscillating between 4-hour and daily. Daily is often the cleanest thing to look at, because you really get to zoom out and see what's been going on that trading session. Obviously all my times are set to UTC timestamps. I did recently find this indicator. So to find new indicators, you just go here and you can search daily, open, weekly levels, etc. And I found this one, which I starred and I added to my thing. So this is just showing me the yearly opening level of Bitcoin, which is down at 93k, the weekly, which is here at 96, and then the monthly up at 102,415. Those are the monthly open levels. Why are they useful? Typically from a liquidity perspective. So if you look on a lower time frame, here was the daily. It took liquidity here at the weekly, and I think it's on the path to take liquidity at the yearly levels. And the reason why there's liquidity at these levels is that's where traders typically put any kind of stop loss. So if you think on a lower time frame, somebody this morning who was, say, unfortunately long here, he's going to have a stop loss at the daily open, and then that gets sliced through and you start seeing this downside pressure. So having those daily levels really helps you get a bit of a view on what's going on. Right now I am focused on something like SUI, which, yeah, see, like this daily level, it went above on the open, set quite a high, and then has failed to recapture that daily open. So for me, that's quite bearish, but there is probably, for shorts that have accumulated, some stops up there that they'll look to take. If not, this weekly target for longer term trading is a bit of an interesting level to get down to, which is at $3. So that's, yeah, the weekly open at $3 down there. Other things I've got going on here, so RSI, so this is over 14 periods. So if I have this on daily, this is going to show me the RSI over 14 days. If I set this to hourly, then this will show me the RSI over 14 hours, right? 14 periods. And generally what people are looking for here is a measure over 70 to show you overbought conditions, and a measure under 30 to show you oversold conditions. Now, these rarely trigger on higher time frames. As you can see, there's only been a few pockets of times where Bitcoin's been over 70, which is this period of time here, over 70 on a daily time frame for the RSI, and then we did kind of reset the RSI and come down a bit November of last year, and then you see these spikes way back when here as well. Although Bitcoin really frustratingly was super high on the RSI. People were shorting, getting blown out, and it continued to go up right up until this thing happened here. So how I like to use RSI is on lower time frames for me. So when I'm looking to enter a position, I'll be looking to enter a long when the 5-minute RSI is under 30. That's a really nice long trigger for me from time to time. And then similarly, if I'm looking to exit a trade, let's say something like Lido yesterday, see the RSI on the 5-minute time frame last night shot up to like 90. So these kind of candles here, they're great to like take a little bit off. And obviously the price went up again after, so like it's not a set in stone thing. But again, here, if that was up there and I still had like 1/3 or 2/3 of my exposure, I would take a little bit more off up there as well, because of the RSI, and then it tends to reset. And you can see down here how we're sub 30. You might want to start getting into a trade, and this is why I always say average into a trade, because it made another trip down to sub 30 down here. So that's great to get another entry point, and an even better entry point for any longs when your RSI is like that. What else is going on here? So I've got these moving averages that I'm using, and I can show you. In fact, let's not do that one. Let's do a cleaner chart. So let's add these EMAs over here, right? So I've got this green line, I've got this white line, and I've got this red line. What the hell are those lines? They are exponential moving averages, and here is the ones that I've got. So 21-day, 200-day, 89-day. It's just smoothing out the price action over those time periods on obviously the daily right now. So the past 21 days, 200 days, 89 days. And a lot of traders use these to see trends. So you can see like all the way up here, it's been kind of hugging that green line, which if we go back to here is my 21-day EMA. And so you can kind of make a decision that once I deviate a bit too high from the 21 EMA, we might be coming back down. It's a good time to long all the way back up and down, etc. The reasons why these EMAs work is they give you a much cleaner picture on what the longer term time frame is. And people love to use it when EMAs cross. So for here, you've got the 21 and the, I believe, oh God, I can't even remember now. The 21 and the 89 EMA crossing, and some downside pressure when those two things end up happening. Now, why 21? Why 89, 200? It's all a bit of trial and error. I mean, broadly speaking, whether you use 20, 21, 22, whether you use 89, 100, 90-day, whatever, it's a personal preference. The fact is that the majority of traders are using this. A lot of algos, which is like algorithmic trading strategies, are using EMAs. And so you're kind of trading along with what the rest of the market is doing when you're using these EMAs. On lower time frames in particular, let's take something like Sol. These EMAs are really clean, so I'm going to get rid of these opens. Yeah, these EMAs are really clean in terms of like resistance levels. So if I look at something like the hourly, or maybe even 4-hourly, you can just see that this 89-day EMA, or 89 period EMA, is just kind of capping the price. Whenever it gets anywhere near it, it just kind of gets slammed, and that's been the trend for a little while now. So you can find these kind of pictures developing here, for example, on Bitcoin. If I go down, anytime the price goes to the top of one of these EMAs, it tends to see some kind of sell pressure, which usually indicates that other people are thinking the same way, which is buy low and get rid of it there, to some extent. The other thing you'll notice here, call 370 views. The other thing you'll notice here is I have very few tickers. Now, I do have other lists with a lot more tickers, but I found it really useful to just focus on 8 to 10 tickers at any given time. It should be really difficult for a project to get a ticker onto your watch list, right? The reason why people love to do airdrops and stuff is because the hardest thing to do as a project is get someone to click these buttons and make you add link USDT, let's say, right? Once you've got it there, you're hooked, and you're going to gamble and trade on this thing because you're going to look at it every single day. So be really selective. I like to be really selective on the assets that I'm trading at any given time. Right now, these assets are my focus. I have started looking a bit more at Litecoin, so I'm going to add that in as well. And the reason why Litecoin's interesting to me right now is because it's just showing a fuck ton of relative strength. So you can see here on the daily Aave, I forget the S&P. This is the actual S&P, not some meme coin. Litecoin is just showing this ridiculous relative strength. Whilst ETH is down, whilst Sol is down, whilst Bitcoin's down. So it's just been interesting to me that this has continued to happen. But I think we can flick over now to Velo Data and take a look what's going on here. So again, I have a few more assets here, but it's very easy to remove one. So if I wanted to remove Pepe, I can. Let's get rid of Doge, Virtual, stuff that I'm not trading at the moment. Fartcoin, ENA, ARC. You guys get the picture, right? So Velo Data, this is free. So normally when you land on Velo, most people will be confronted with something that looks a bit like, not this, maybe something like this, right? And they don't know necessarily where to go. Now Velo Data is all free and you can look at any asset. So let's pick Litecoin, which we've been looking at. Some interesting stuff just on this dashboard alone, right? It tells you the volume on which exchange is happening. It tells you what's happening with funding rates for Velo Data, for Litecoin, sorry, open interest across different exchanges and what the trend is. You can change the time frame, like so, and overlay the price as well, so you can see how price is evolving with these different time frames. Open interest is increasing there. Litecoin price clearly. Liquidations, which is really useful because if you have a look here, you can actually see the magnitude of liquidations taking place within particular hours on something like Litecoin. And clearly you want to be the other side of those trades, right? So if that's a whole bunch of shorts getting liquidated, means that there might be even more shorts in the market, or you could see it the other way, the shorts have been liquidated, who else is going to drive the price up? And a whole bunch of other things. And then this can all be used in conjunction with the charting tool. Now here I have different rows, right? So initially you won't see any of these. I could just delete them, but I'm not going to do that out of preference. But here, if you click on indicators, you can add any of these. So aggregated open interest in terms of number of coins, aggregated liquidations, CVD, which is all about delta, so cumulative volume delta, is it positive or negative, and the magnitude of that. So here you can see both spot, which is the yellow line, and the red line perps on a lower time frame. If I zoom in, there's been a little bit of spot buy pressure on this Litecoin thing, and perps are just kind of selling into that. So this is how I have Velo Data set up. So if I look at something like Bitcoin, and again, you can change the time frames to get different insights into what's going on. But these are the main, make sure you get these set up if you've not done them already. Let's talk about Bitcoin in particular, because I have a bit of a cleaner picture on what's been going on there. So you can see with Bitcoin, it has had pretty range bound price action. This is obviously dating back all the way to Feb now, which seems like an eternity ago. And what's slowly been happening is open interest, i.e. the number of coins which are outstanding on the market at any given time, both long and short, has just been decreasing. And that is because there has been some steady decrease of shorts. So this move down here from like 91 right through to 102. This is all shorts closing, and you can see that in the open interest. And then we started to ramp back up a little bit. Price got up to like 100K here. And then you just saw a bunch of liquidations as the price went down, open interest went down. These red bars here are longs getting liquidated, and vice versa. If you see greens like that, that's shorts getting liquidated, which means force buyers. So I'll say that again. Here, immediately I can look at this, aggregated liquidations. I'm looking at Bitcoin, and I can see, oh my God, here, a whole bunch of longs are getting liquidated. Without even looking at the chart or anything else, I can tell you that that is going to start to become a good buy opportunity, because people are getting liquidated, open interest is collapsing, and your funding rate is typically negative, so you're going to get paid to be in a long as well, because people are paying to short the lows especially, and then you can enter into a long trade as a scalp and get out of that trade. So this is my setup. I'm looking at a certain number of tokens, and what's really interesting here is you can actually sort by 24-hour funding rate. So something like Hype, which clearly has a lot of hype, the annualized funding rate at the moment is 21%, which is a super high but not crazy amount. And you can see stuff like BNB is actually very negative funding. So people are paying about 15% annualized over the past 24 hours to be short BNB, which this is a great example of a token which now leaves you vulnerable to potentially going to the upside. And the reason why I say that is because you had this crazy ramp up from, like, let's say 625-ish all the way up to over 700, 730. Open interest went up along with that, which means perps are basically longing this thing, which is the red line here. You see the perp activity kind of reach a peak. But you also had, and this is the yellow line, spot buyers, right? So what people are doing is they are bridging over to BNB. They're getting that BNB so that they can participate in whatever meme coins on BSC. And there is a persistent spot bid, and the perps were actually trailing that in magnitude. And then what happened is clearly some people were getting liquidated here. It wasn't even that much spot sell pressure. That caused this cascade down, so perps closing, and yeah, just getting stopped in a big liquidation cascade. Open interest collapses. This initial thing is shorts closing, which got you all the way up here, and then a whole bunch of longs getting liquidated down like that. So much so that the funding rate is super negative right now. I think BNB continues to have a little bit of downside, but at some point it will bounce, close out all these shorts that are piling in at the moment. Open interest is still pretty low. If shorts go up, obviously you expect to see that line increasing. Right now the market's in a position of probably getting rid of anyone that got in around 630, 640. So I imagine that is a good time to start longing once a lot of this open interest has been cleared out. So you want to see open interest kind of go back to where it was. What is going on here? Let's try and use a brush.
Artlist.io.
Yeah. Oh god, that looks horrible. Let's try something else. Well, that really looks horrible, doesn't it? Okay, well, you get the picture. Open interest should collapse down here along with price as more of these late leverage longers close, but a lot of them are already out, as you can see. So that's why the funding rates are negative, because everyone's trying to do the same play, which is short BNB at the moment. God, I really don't like the lines I put on there. Delete, 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 delete. I'm a little bit OCD about stuff like that. SUI is something that I'm looking to short whenever there is a pop in this thing. And part of the reason for that, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, is just because this is like consistent spot selling of this thing. Ever since there was some token unlocks, we've seen CBD delta, so spot delta, it's just been trending lower and lower, especially if I go to a higher time frame.
Music licensing.
Ever since, yeah, like the 11th of Jan, this has just been a slow, steady selling of spot. And obviously perps, who were really longing this thing towards the end of last year, it basically crossed over at some point, and perps have been out of this trade as well. So I think all the bleeding will continue, but yeah, SUI, in my opinion, has like kind of cycle topped. And especially if you look at higher time frames here, yes, okay, that weekly's bouncing a fair bit, but I feel like we've already hit the highs on SUI, and any kind of spikes into these liquidity zones, which is where a lot of action took place and where the original price broke down, If there are any spot holders, they'll just sell as we get closer to 4. So Sui is one of my focuses for a short leg for many reasons. Something else that I wanted to show today was Orion. So Orion Terminal is another free tool, and if I take the example of Sui again, I've again configured this in the settings here, which you can do yourself. And you can just move around all these different things and drag and drop. So like the 15-minute price change, I can put it here on my chart somewhere, and then it will show up wherever it should have been, etc. Doesn't appear to show. Oh yeah, it's right here at the end. 15-minute went to the end. So I can drag and drop, and I'll just show you my setup for this. I use Orion a lot less these days. It was actually Delta XBT that told me about this. But the fields that I have here, I'm just going to use actually Bitcoin because it's top of my list here. Is price change over, let's say, a day, so I can see what's happening. Price change over the past hour. The funding rate, which is positive, and then volume delta. So volume delta, I leave you to like find your own kind of definitions of this, but essentially what it's saying is the volume delta positive or negative, i.e. is there net buyers or net sellers of this token, which is Bitcoin, and what magnitude. So over the past 15 minutes, there's been like 288k of net buy pressure on Bitcoin. And the same over like the past hour, the past 8 hours, you can start to get a bit of a picture, right? Which is, okay, this is Bitcoin. Over the past day, it's down 1.5%, but on a shorter time frame, it's going up 0.26%. Funding's positive, which means people are net long. Over the past 15 minutes, the volume delta, the net buy pressure has been about 315k, and actually over the past hour it's been over 1 million, and over the past 8 hours there's been selling, which implies to me that the selling's already happened if the daily is like so. Open interest change, which is less relevant here because there's not been a big move. Open interest change over the past hour, that suggests to me that some shorts, if price is going up and open interest is going down, that suggests that some shorts are starting to get squeezed. And then, yeah, open interest to market cap. So this is an interesting field. Sorting hasn't been working very well on here recently. But generally, a high open interest to market cap shows a very, very derivatives heavy market. So something like ALCH or ACT shows that the majority of the market cap is actually an open interest. So you can see some kind of crazy moves on those assets. If I take Sol, let's do Sol as another example. So price is 194.45 over the past 15 minutes. Price is going up. Let's have a look what's going on Sol. Obviously on higher time frames, not much. On lower time frames, looks like, oh my god, breakout, must buy this thing.
Music licensing reimagined.
And again, you can see, like, if you look at these EMAs and whatnot, Sol, anytime it's been getting up towards these like 200 period EMA, has been getting slammed. So let's keep an eye on that. If it breaks out meaningfully and goes above, let's say like 198, 199, 200 plus, some interesting stuff can start to happen. So Sol on the day is flat. On the past hour, doing really well. Funding is pretty flat, so good if you want to get into a long. And you can see like there's been some net buy pressure and the magnitude of that buy pressure as well. Open interest is increasing a little bit. I imagine that is people opening fresh longs, and you can go into here and probably get a somewhat similar picture, which is, I'm going to go on a shorter time frame, and see price is going up, open interest is going down, that short's closing. Is it shorts closing? Absolutely. Look, green bars, shorts getting liquidated, shorts getting liquidated, shorts getting liquidated. Funding rate is starting to get less and less negative, which means less people are shorting, means people are closing their shorts. Some people are opening longs, and so the funding rate is getting flatter and flatter. And so I do expect a little bit of short-term upside in Sol. Might be something that we put on a bit later in the stream.
Artlist.io.
Right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen there and go to Telegram, which is the next thing I wanted to talk about. Right, so Telegram, I've obviously created a folder here just for this stream, but there are a few things I like to look at and keep an eye on during my day on Telegram, and most of it is these liquidations tapes. So you've got Bybit liquidations, you've got Binance Futures liquidations. Easy to find these. The link is just Binance liquidations, and then the Bybit one is, where have you gone?
Artlist.io.
Here, sorry, yeah. Bybit liquidations, like so. And then Levitas Futures is aggregating between Binance and OKX and Bybit. So if you only ever needed to join one, then you could join this one, and it's aggregating these. And I think it has a slightly higher threshold of like minimum 50k of margin has to get liquidated for it to come up in here. How this is interesting, how I use this is I'll see something pop up like this, 500 Sol, so like 100k, liquidated a short at 195,603. I'm going to go back to my chart and be like, okay, people are starting to get liquidated on Sol, which means if I want to short, maybe now is a good time to, or might start to be a good time to get in, but more likely than not, there's some upside pressure being applied from shorts getting liquidated. And generally you want to be the other side of liquidations, right? So when shorts are getting liquidated, it could be a case that that's going to keep continuing. And when that keeps continuing, it might be a good time to get into some new fresh shorts as well. So all this combined is telling me that Solana in particular is just having a little bit of a short squeeze happening. I wouldn't say a short squeeze per se, but like, yeah, definitely shorts are getting liquidated, and that's translating to some upside. And again, open interest keeps falling, more shorts are getting liquidated. You see it on the Bybit Telegram or the futures liquidation Telegram thing as well. What does that translate into actionable trade ideas? It means like in a broader trend here, Solana is going down, right? So it's interesting on shorter time frames to short this. Shorter time frames being things like the 5-minute, because like I said, that 14 period RSI is now creeping over 70. Last time it did that and creeped over 70, look what happened, we just went straight down. So on shorter time frames, it could be interesting to short Solana over the next, like, I don't know, 10-15 minutes or so. I'm not going to do that because looking at a higher time frame like so, it's clearly bouncing off this 200 EMA, which lo and behold is actually the yearly open as well. So 189, it keeps bouncing off this level. It's had like 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, 4 touch, 5 touch, and keeps bouncing. Once it eventually does break 189, I do think you get a lot of downside, but for now clearly the market wants to stay above that level, which is why you have these yearly levels kind of mapped out. So let's go back to Telegram for a second.
Artlist.io.
Cool. And the final thing I wanted to show here, which has been less active that often, is just detecting TWAPs. So there was a period of time back in January where there was some major TWAPs going on Bitcoin. Over 1 million of Bitcoin being bought every hour on various exchanges. And this is just interesting. If you see over time, rarely does it happen, but like, for example, in Litecoin back in November, there was some interesting buy pressure. And typically when someone's TWAPing into a position, they know something. So it's just useful to have. I don't even know if this has been updated, but the one I'm using was CoinAct. It hasn't triggered for a while, but I think that's because there's just not been many interesting spot buyers in the market. So let's go to TradingView. Like I said, TradingView is the home of all of this shit. You will constantly be coming back to it. So for reference, Solana's at 195. If I was a lower time frame scalper, I would have shorted here over the next like 10-15 minutes, done a TWAP. Sorry, add that back. Solana, yeah, but for the reasons we just talked about, basically liquidations being the only reason why Solana is going up. No meaningful spot buyers are appearing in this market. If the only reason the market is going up is because shorts are getting liquidated, it can be on a lower time frame here at 195-ish, something worth shorting back down, and you could maybe make that point to 194 or something like that. See how the RSI has crossed over 70? I want to know when those things are happening, right? So I set alerts. These are pretty easy to do. So you just add an alert. So when the price, and I can have RSI crosses a value 75, let's say, only once send me an alert, and it will alert me like this. It will alert me on my phone as well. And so I've got alerts for RSI on over 70 on Sol, ETH, and Bitcoin, and under 30 on Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol. And here my short that I would have taken as a scalp is starting to get in the money again. So you can start to see how I'm piecing stuff together, right? Like a story is being told, generally, is the way that I like to think about trading crypto markets. The market is trying to tell you a story, and it's on you to find all these different data sources and piece it together. Even as I like describe this, it sounds really boring, right? Like a laborious process. The best way I think about it is like a game, and it's a bit of a video game. So, you know, just play it accordingly, which we can talk about when we get into sizing. But this is alerts, and alerts trigger, and then, you know, most of the time you don't need to do something, and an alert will come and it will tell you when to go. So let's move on. I'm not going to talk about spaghetti charts other than to say that they tell you on a lower time frame relative value and what's doing well. So I can see here that Lido, XRP, and Sol on a shorter time frame relative winners, and stuff like Fartcoin, ENA, A16Z is not. This is really useful when pair trading, especially if you zoom out to see some trends that are happening. So one of the reasons why I've been long Lido in my pair trades and outright as well is just because it's been showing some immense relative strength. There is a rumor going around that BlackRock or somebody like that is going to file for a state ETH ETF, and that Lido will be the provider of that. And so clearly the market is cottoning on to the fact that these ETF providers will be doing something like that. I don't have any insight into whether that's true or not, but just to let you know that that is part of a narrative that's forming as well. Okay, so let's go and talk about pair trading. I'm going to get this off. Present, share screen, window, here. And this is the new wallet that I just created on Pair, and I'm going to invite a dear friend of mine, Lafa, to join. And he should join soon as well. So obviously another way of trading this market other than directionally is on Pair, and to pair trade certain things. And so right now, as I was saying, I want to be short Sui for various reasons, and I want to be long something against it, like long Bitcoin. The nice thing about pair trading is normally you're paying funding to be long an asset, and you are receiving funding to be short an asset. And so what happens is you will pay to be long and you'll receive on the short leg. And this is the net funding. So here, net, because people are shorting SUI, you have to pay that negative funding. And because Bitcoin is still green, net you have to pay, but you can see it's a minuscule amount compared to if you were just outright longing Bitcoin, which if you go to trade Bitcoin, it might not seem like a lot, but annualized 11% you're paying to be long Bitcoin. I think these funding countdowns are hourly, so yeah, 0.013% hourly is what you pay. And there's a great description of what funding actually is. This resets every hour, and it's worth really keeping an eye on it because it becomes very expensive to hold outright longs. Funding is a really expensive exercise if you're not getting in and out of trades fairly regularly. One way to keep an eye on funding is CoinGlass, another free tool. Everything I've been showing today has been free so far. Oh, wrong password. No need to log in. A funding rate heat map will just show you that pretty generally funding rates are flat for most major assets. And if I look here to something like Bitcoin, I can look across various exchanges. Interestingly enough, they haven't got Hyperliquid just yet. But sometimes you get some funding rate arbitrage that can happen as well. So for example, you could go long on DYDX for fairly low funding and then short it on somewhere a bit more expensive like Hyperliquid, and earn that funding rate every hour. So you see those kind of funding rate arbitrages taking place from time to time. And in fact, Hyperliquid used to show you a funding comparison directly. So on Bitcoin, it shows you the ARB if you were to do long on Binance and short on Hyperliquid. And the reason why they've managed to get so much volume is because there have been people arbing the funding rates on Hyperliquid. Generally speaking, Hyperliquid perp traders, including myself, they're paying way too much funding to be long the positions there. And there is some smart money out there which is picking you off on these funding rates. So let's go to pair trading now, and we talked about the idea of net funding. What's interesting is sometimes you can get paid to be in a pair trade. So the opposite of this, let's say you wanted to be long SUI, is you would actually receive funding every 8 hours to be long SUI and short Bitcoin. Let's see what Sol is doing. Long Sol. This trade did so well over the past cycle. You literally just had to go to sleep on long Sol and short ETH. And right now you get paid. So negative funding here means you get paid to be in this trade. I know it's a bit counterintuitive, but the idea is that you're paying a negative rate. You're receiving that funding. And if you're not familiar with the pair interface, essentially what's happening here is I am longing Solana and I'm shorting ETH at the same time, and I'm making the net returns on that. So if I look at a shorter time frame, like so, if Solana goes up 2% and ETH goes up only 1%, then I'll make 1%. And the ratio of the two is shown over here. And vice versa, if let's say Solana goes down 5%, but ETH goes down 10%, then I make 5% in that scenario. So one of the trades which we could look to do right now is going long Bitcoin. And let's say short Sol. And we can see how this trade has been doing over time. Generally speaking, like on lower time frames, this is not doing much. And this is why I like to use pair trading for much longer term positions, because trends can really kind of play themselves out. Bitcoin Sol hasn't really done much. I do have my eye on Bitcoin SUI because I am of the view that this thing is going to go up to like there at some point. 50k. as the spread between the two. Just in terms of how this all works, let's say I want to go long Bitcoin and short Sui. I generally tend to average my position sizing. So let's get into position sizing. So I've got $1,000 here. Now, people talk about this concept of R, like 1 unit of risk, right? So if I was gonna use $1,000 of collateral, I'm clearly using my whole account to do that, which is not something I want to do. Now, people normally talk about 1 unit of risk as like 1% of their portfolio. So what's the most that I'm willing to lose on a certain position? So if I've got $1,000 and I only want to lose 1 unit of risk, which is 1%, then I'm happy to lose $10. Does that mean I do a $10 trade? No, because I want to lose $10. I don't need to do a $10 notional and get wiped out completely on the trade, right? So now I'm thinking, okay, I want to, in fact, let me do this on a calculator. Share screen. Right, let's start again. So I have $1,000 in my account, and clearly I don't want to risk all $1,000 in one trade. I want to risk maybe 1% of that, so 0.01. So I want to risk $10 on the trade. Now that could mean what? Like the price of the asset or the pair doesn't need to go to 0, right? I'm wrong when, let's say, the price moves 2%. So if I divide this by 0.02, then I can do a $500 trade. And what that essentially means is I do a $500 trade. If the price moves against me 2%, then I'll lose 10. And so I'm going to do a $500 trade and do that on pair. And by the way, I'm using our intent-centric model because we have the entire Binance order book on chain, which is something that we built because of my dear friend, Mr. Laffer Chief, who has just joined. What's up, Laffer?
Hey guys, nice to be here.
Nice to have you here. So we're just talking about the intent-based engine. I was just about to place a trade here, which was going long Bitcoin and short Sui, but I could short pretty much anything which is on the Binance order book, including the most recent listings like Bera, Test, B3 and IP and stuff. Could I maybe give you a second? We do these new listings like within minutes of them popping up on centralized exchanges. Could I maybe just give you a few minutes to just chat about how the architecture works and how this is all possible?
Sure. And soon we will also have everything that gets listed on Bybit immediately. And it's basically because we are plugging in with market makers that provide that liquidity on chain. They source it from centralized exchanges and offer it with a little spread on top, decentralized on chain. And that's why you can trade everything on pair with deep liquidity just directly after it's getting listed, right? And that's basically only the start. We'll have a lot more market makers coming online, offering more products. Now we're adding Bybit. There's a few other things in the pipeline. So yeah, you will see more and more assets just getting listed on the Intent engine. We recently created a new Twitter account just for listings because it's just getting too much now. So we're clogging the main Twitter. I can drop that probably in the chat quickly, a link, so everyone can just follow that account to see what's getting listed. I think today we had like 2 listings.
Artlist.io.
You still with us, Laffer?
Yes, I just sent a link quickly in the chat.
Nice. Yeah, man, working with the Simio architecture has been amazing in terms of opening up, especially like it's been the meta right now to short all these new listings. And if there's anything you really want to do, it's to be long Bitcoin, right? In the in this entire market. So we have seen a lot of users come and just do stuff like long Bitcoin, short Bearer. No heat on those guys, but things like long Bitcoin, short Millennia, Milania, whatever. You see since listing, which is this date here. So whenever Millennia was listed and added to the intent engine, if you just went long Bitcoin, let's say you want to be long Bitcoin, and you have that $1,000 in your account, like I said, and I just did the calculator example. So I want to do a $500 trade and risk 2% of my capital. Then what I can do is just like do $500 times 1x leverage, like so. Now, leverage for us is really like a position sizing tool, and this will tell you the position value that you're going to trade. Doing 50 times 10 is, people will think that's riskier because I'm going to get liquidated at a 10% move, but it's not actually the case, right? The most important thing to keep an eye on is your maintenance margin, and leverage becomes a bit of a position sizing tool. We talk a lot more about this in the kind of docs, and join the Discord. But for now, I'm just going to keep it simple and do a trade. I did say I was going to do Bitcoin SUI, and I did say I was going to risk 2% of my portfolio, so $10. So I'm going to do this trade. It's telling me that I need to have only $400 of collateral. It does do some rounding to the nearest amount, so I can't do exactly 250 of Bitcoin. I think it's got unit levels, right? Is there like minimum tick sizes I can trade, Lafa, on Bitcoin?
Yes, there is minimum tick sizes.
Yeah, so this is going to be slightly edged towards towards short SUI. I'm going to open this position so you can see how it works. Roughly speaking, I'm about $250 short SUI and $250 short Bitcoin. I don't have enough to get to the next unit on Bitcoin, so. Lafa, can you just talk about a little bit about what's going on the back end here?
Sure. I mean, now you send probably a limit order. Yeah, exactly. You send an order. I'm not sure what it was, limit or market, but in the background, basically the solver picked up the order, did whatever hedging he needs to do, and then opened up the order for you. The benefit of SIM for solvers and for users is that they're both, in a sense, protected. You can define how much, what's the max price you want to get, right? And on the other hand, the solver also has a little bit of execution protection, where he has like last look and then can accept the trade. In contrarian with other exchanges, where if you send an order, you're kind of locked in. Obviously, solvers are incentivized to just open immediately, and I guess that's what just happened.
Amazing. There's a load of, I've just seen a whole bunch of comments open up. Well, Lafa, we're going to continue with our charting. Feel free to stick around, but for now I'm going to go back to the charts. But thanks for popping by, man.
Great. I will keep watching.
Amazing, man. I'm going to go back to the charts. Thank you so much. Right, so let's go back and check in on what was going on that Solana short at 195. That was a paper short. I didn't even do it. Sure. Oh, look. Solana is going down. And so, yeah, that 5-minute RSI, or 5-period RSI, which we saw up here at 195, is playing out, is going down. And like I said, the story... Oh, shit. Sorry, I wasn't showing my screen. Let's go again. yeah, so I was saying here. We on paper shorted Solana at 195 because of the RSI,
Artlist
and we said we expect it to go down towards this like 193 kind of level. And part of the reason why we said that was going to happen was not just the RSI on those shorter time periods, but also the fact that the only reason the market was going up is because these shorts were getting liquidated, and you saw that in the open interest, and we saw some interesting stuff happening on Orion as well, which was telling me that it was basically shorts closing and no fundamental reason to do that. Although on a higher time frame, you can make the argument that Solana is bottoming, and I think that's a really important point to make about trading. Is you can have contrasting views on different time frames. So on the short time frame, I'm bearish Solana, but on a higher time frame, I can make a bullish argument for wanting to be long this thing. And a lot of people get caught up because they expect to see like the same picture on a short time frame and a higher time frame. It's not necessarily the case. And the same thing here on Sui. I have a higher time frame short thesis on Sui, especially on stuff like the daily, with it like being capped more recently, ever since early Jan, been capped. Big rejection here, which we did catch in the channel at these EMAs, another one here, and another one I think forming here, which is why I want to be short this thing, and that's why I'm doing long Bitcoin, short Sui. So let's take this off. Let's quickly talk about token unlocks, because that does factor into my thinking quite a lot. So long Bitcoin, short Sui is the trade that we put on stream. And part of the reason we did that is we are of the view that Sui, let's have a look at its funding rates. It is negative. So what is happening here on Sui is people are shorting it on Binance, they are shorting it on OKX, they are shorting it on Vertex, they are shorting it elsewhere, and it's broadly flat elsewhere. So I am averaging into this trade, right? So like I said, if I want to risk 1R of 2% of my portfolio, then I will only do this one trade for close to $500. If I want to take more risk, obviously I will just keep adding onto these. So a 2R trade would be me doing let's say $100 5x. Amount is too low, minimum collateral. Oh, I have to use a certain. Okay. 500. Let's do that position again. So I am going to average into these positions. I talk about doing clips, but averaging into positions is something I like to do. Let's talk about token unlock. So Tokenomists.ai does have a free product offering, and you can search for any token here. So I'm going to look at Sui. And one of the reasons why we did a big short earlier in the year is because there was an unlock event happening, which was for 1.3% of circulating supply. And that was on the 3rd of Feb. People will know in my channel that I shared in my Telegram channel. It's pinned on my Twitter profile if you haven't seen it, that we started building a short thesis on Sui. For part of the reason was token unlock. So the next one is on the 1st of March. I think these are monthly and they're always around like 1% of supply. So you do have like a huge unlock schedule coming. You can use Tokenomist also for a large kind of overview of upcoming unlocks. So Sand has a huge unlock coming up. Some of this other dog shit today, Solana, WLD, Doge. Sometimes this stuff is wrong. Cliff unlocks is where I'm looking most often. Sometimes this stuff is wrong, so it's best to go and double check either in the Discord or the project or whatever else, but definitely valuable data here when it comes to finding short legs, especially if you click here and look at stuff like STRK, for example. Over this past 24 hours, it's negative, market cap 600 million. And only 13.5% of the tokens have been unlocked. It's got another unlock coming up in a day, 2.48, like this. So let's quickly build a thesis on long Bitcoin, short Starknet. Bitcoin is the asset I want to be long. And clearly, like if we go below these levels, I'm wrong, right? I'm wrong if we like go below here, because that trend, which is like just kind of bouncing around at the moment, was wrong. Let's look on a higher time frame. Right, so I like to use risk to reward. We talked about that concept of like 1R. So if I'm going to take a long position here, and I set my stop losses here, and I think I can take profit up here somewhere, then that's a 3-to-1 risk ratio. So if I'm going to risk 1 unit of risk, I expect to make 3 units of risk on the way up. So to use the example from before, if I'm going to risk $10, then I expect to make $30 on that trade, right? So my $500 trade becomes $530 or becomes $490. I either lose the 10 or I gain the 30. And you want to find risk reward ratios of at least 2-to-1. And then kind of walk away. We do have a take profit stop loss feature, which is currently disabled. But this idea of adding your take profit stop loss will be down here, your take profit will be up there, and just taking lots of these asymmetric risk reward setups and then doing them, compounding them essentially. So your $500 becomes $530, or rather my $1,000 becomes $1,030, and then you enter the next trade, the next trade, the next trade. You can double your account pretty quickly, taking really good risk reward setups as well. So I am entering a Bitcoin Stark trade. I didn't spend too long thinking about this because I have looked at Starknet, but we can, there, I'm in that position now, but we can see what's going on with STRK standalone over here. And so to add an STRK, not to be confused with whatever Stela is doing, you have different exchanges. I'm going to use Binance Spot Market just to take a look what's going on. I'm going to get rid of these EMAs for a second just to get a cleaner picture of what's going on. And yeah, Starknet is clearly just downtrending, right? Whether it's hourly, 4-hourly, daily, ever since launch, this thing's been the case. And on shorter time frames, it's choppy, but choppy to like the downside. So I don't see any real reason to want to be long this, and I don't see any real reason why I should be scared to be short this thing either. If you were taking an outright position on this, you can use similar kind of, let's go shorter time frames. Let's say this wick, we don't want it to be revisited. If I was going to take an outright short position on this, so I do want that wick to be revisited, I'm shorting, then I could set my stop loss, let's say up here somewhere.
Artlist.io.
And let's say my take profit, I want a 2-to-1 minimum down there, and that's the kind of risk reward setup that you could take. And then again, you can make the same calculations on what 1R for you is. So losing 1R would be losing this amount, whether that's $100, $1,000, $10 for you, and making 2R, which is, in this case, it would be, let's say I'm risking $10 to make 20. Then I'd make 2R on that trade as well. And 1R, like I said, is typically 1 to 2% of your portfolio, but adjust it as you will depending on your conviction on the trade idea that you're looking to trade. The market here, let's just talk more generally about the market. The market's bouncing, which is nice to see, although the Bitcoin is bouncing and other stuff is not really doing much. What are these areas, right? These are areas that I have marked as supply and demand areas. Again, it's just where like this price broke down, and as we get back to it, anyone who wished that they got out is just selling into those, and then all these shorts that were here, they got stopped out. They would have had stops here, and we see this run kind of going up. So it's a little bit of a manual process when I put these boxes here, but it's just where I believe that there's liquidity, and price generally moves to where there's liquidity, especially in this shitty market where there's no like genuine buyers of anything. It's just perp traders providing liquidity on lower time frames. Look at this, right? Nothing happening in spot Bitcoin. Perps like keep losing money essentially, but aggressively chasing the long in funding rates. Price is doing not much. Open interest is kind of here. It's actually not moved that much. But yeah, price moves to where there's liquidity, and I do think in this market there is liquidity higher. And so we might see one move towards like 100k, just because I believe there's liquidity to be taken there. This shorts have had a pretty easy ride ever since up here. And at some point we do take them out, because this game is just this bullshit game of taking liquidity at the moment, which is why I'm not too interested in directionally trading it. I do like Bitcoin as my long leg for anything. As you can see, like this short-term scalp on Sol, which I would have been out of, is starting to go back up, which generally tells me that the longer time frame idea that Sol might be going up might start to play out, is hugging that 200 EMA as well. Right, I think I've got one final thing I wanted to show people, which was I wanted to show you how I use TWAP, because a lot of people, they just slam market orders, and that's not an efficient way to trade. So TWAP, if you haven't found this feature already, it's available on most centralized exchanges. It's available on Hyperliquid, and soon we will have it on Pair as well. But essentially, look, if I wanted to go long, this is at $1,000. Let's say I wanted to go long. Going to do it in dollar terms to keep it simple. Let's say I wanted to go long $500 of Bitcoin. I could just slam a market order. Now, the alternative is I set a limit order. So I want to buy it at like 96,300. I could set a limit order and place a limit in the order book. It probably isn't going to be visible. But if the price goes down, you know, I'm in the order book for $500 of Bitcoin right there. But there's a cumulative of like 13 million of buy pressure ahead of me, so I'm probably not going to get filled unless we go lower down. So one thing I can do is I can set limit orders, or if I wanted to build a position, and it's a really great piece of advice to build positions, just like I was averaging in to Bitcoin Sui, just like I'm averaging into Bitcoin stock. I can go here to Pro TWAP $500, and I want to do that over, let's say, the next 12 hours. And this will just place in, I believe it's in 30-second intervals. It will just chop my minimum. So what, must have a minimum. Okay, my size is too small. It will just chop your trade order into 30-second orders. And then you can see how that TWAP is evolving over time, like so. And then the best thing about this, and the reason why I love TWAP orders, is clearly I'm in a position now. I've only executed like $11 of the trade, and it's going to keep doing that every 30 seconds. But the beauty of this thing is I can just terminate it. If I don't like the price action and the way it's going, I can just terminate it. Generally speaking, when you have a TWAP on, you want the price to go against you, right? You've decided, okay, I want to be long Bitcoin, and you're like, please go down, please go down. I want a better fill. If the price is going up and trending up, great. Like, I'm buying as the market goes up, which is obviously a nice thing to do as well at the same time. So use TWAP, especially when we have it added onto Pair. And that was the final thing I wanted to show trading wise. More generally speaking, I wanted to end on something a little bit bullish, which is, clearly you've seen me go through a whole bunch of different data sources, like token unlocks, Orion Terminal, Velo Data, and the likes. Now, what we're working on is a specialized AI agent that will alert you whenever these pair trading opportunities come up. So let's say I wanted to just avoid the market. Once agent pair is live, it will suggest a long trade, suggest a short trade, show you the correlation, how much it's standard deviated, and then it will build that story for you. So there's a story here about funding rates. There's a story here about liquidation skew, about open interest, about long short ratios, other trade ideas. I think it showed an idea earlier about it was about mana and sand, and it was all about token unlocks and things as well. So agent pair is definitely something which is heavily in the works, and we're working on making it conversational as well. So asking something like, tell me about upcoming SUI unlocks.
Music licensing reimagined.
I'm trying to basically make life easy for myself. But yeah, we've built this custom kind of LLM on the back of this. We've fed in CoinGecko, CoinGlass, TradingView, Binance APIs, Tokenomist, and a whole bunch of other places. And I can have a real conversation with it about anything. So what do you think of
Artlist.io.
BTC SUI right now? I can ask anything. And this is really like the next stage of pair, which is building out tooling so people can enter their pair trades in a much more seamless manner. And ideally we have just a vault where like it executes that trade for you. So there's probably enough alpha that I've shown about what agent pair is up to. Just to wrap up then on my market views, which is like so. I think
Music licensing reimagined.
the market is in range bound chop, and I don't want to trade this directionally too much. I did draw these arrows a little while back about a range bound path that breaks out to the upside. I still believe that Bitcoin breaks out to the upside eventually. I've got a short asset list here of Litecoin, which has shown some real kind of relative strength of late. ETH, which I like. By the way, there's this rumor circulating about BlackRock filing for a staked ETH ETF change with Lido as their staking provider. If that happens, obviously you're going to see like some pretty explosive price action. On Lido, I like SUI for short legs, but I'm open to the idea that it goes a bit higher, especially with SUI funding rates being negative across exchanges. So there's probably some late shorts to squeeze. Hype is a great asset to be long spot. Buying this on perps, honestly, these people have just been paying funding through the roof. It's been better than being liquidated on ETH, but like if the market does turn, I do think hype goes to test whatever's down here, sub 20 again, before it really goes. Solana super weak. You can see Bitcoin's rallying, Solana's not doing much. And just generally speaking, I think this market is one where like it's player versus environment. You're playing against other people. You want to buy their liquidations and take the other side of them. And you want to counter trade whenever you see elements of the market getting really frothy. So last night, maybe a great example with ETH, where you had this news-driven catalyst, like so. You had a spot bid, you had perps aggressively chasing it, funding rates were like super elevated all day as people hoping that ETH kind of came back, and then people just gave up, right? These are all longs closing, longs closing, longs closing. Funding rates go negative. Again, people have given up. Open interest has come down. A whole bunch of longs have been liquidated, which are down here. Not that many actually, to be honest. And now we're starting to go back up again. So this is a really painful market. Treat it like a bit of a game. And honestly, like I'm not just trying to talk my own shop. I think pair trading is the best way to do it. You can pair trade yourself in draw the charts yourself in TradingView. You have to do stuff like this and type it in manually if you caught what I was doing there. But the quickest thing to do is going to be to go over to pair, select your asset that you want to long, select your asset to short, and then you can enter those trades in one clip. So that's everything for today. I think I'm going to wrap up the stream. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. If people enjoyed it, please do give us some feedback in sorry, I was talking about Bitcoin stock and charting it. Yeah, if people enjoyed the stream, do give us some feedback in Discord, and we'll hope to do one again at some point in the future. But for now, that was Huff, and that was Pair Protocol. Thanks, guys.
IO.